In central China, an archaeology team is looking into a network of underground tombs. The experts then discover an intriguing object, an ancient water-damaged casket. After prying open the object, the group discovers a human skeleton and a sealed wooden box inside. But there's more. A kind of exquisite instrument that no one has seen in about 2,400 years is contained within that box. Additionally, the archaeologists will ultimately discover that the weapon once belonged to a significant figure in the country's history. If archaeologists in China found a weapon that was perfectly preserved for 2,400 years, it's perhaps no surprise that the sword is so old. However, as such blades have long represented power in human societies. For warriors of so many different cultures and dira, the weapons have been seen to symbolize strength, chivalry, and masculinity, as well as war. And this is reflected in the plethora of hero myths that have survived through the ages, from the tale of King Arthur and Excalibur to the Greek fable of Perseus. The Far East too has much to offer in this arena. The sword discovered in the Chinese tomb in 1965, meanwhile, has proved to be an incredible cultural treasure. The so-called Sword of Gaussian is not just exceptional for its outstanding workmanship, but also for its extraordinary physical properties. And the weapons on near thing in modern times has allowed historians to take a look back into an ancient world. More specifically, the sword was uncovered in the province of Hubei. That name translates to north of the lake, a reference to the expansive daunting lake in Hunan province during Neolithic times. The Hubei area was inhabited by humans, and it is considered to be one of the birthplaces of Chinese civilization. Given its rich history, then naturally Hubei province has an intriguing archaeological record, and Hubei is geographically significant too. At its heart, the province hosts a sprawling, ultra-fertile alluvial plain called jangan. This stretch of land is itself surrounded by the Jing, Dhaba, Wu, and Wu Tang mountain ranges, with the highest peak among them, all climbing to more than 10,000 feet. Hubei is also crossed by one of the Yangtze River's larger tributaries, which joins it at the Jangan Plain. Hubei is also known as the province of lakes because the plain is punctuated by numerous bodies of water. Additionally, the land is home to a significant number of artificially constructed reservoirs due to its numerous hydroelectric dams. As a matter of fact, the locale is at present home to the biggest dam on the planet with regards to electrical result. The 3 George on the Yangtze, the kind of gaussian in the meantime, was found during a review of the Jiang waterway supply's second reservoir conduit, which is situated in the city of Jinzhou. The city center is a cultural and historical hub that dates back 2,000 years. It was once the prominent capital of the state of Chu, a 411-year-long kingdom that had 20 rulers. Now, in October 1965, the archaeologists discovered a series of 50 tombs that all seem to have been built during the Chu era, while they were looking at a section of the aqueduct in Jingling County. After that, they start digging at the site, which they do with some success. In the 3 months that followed, the team found more than 2,000 artifacts. The casket with the gaussian was found in a tomb about 4 miles from the ruined city of Ying. This former city, which is now close to modern Jinzhou, was another former capital of Chu. Additionally, the sword attracted worldwide media attention, bringing it international renown. It turned out that the sword was made in China during the so-called Spring and Autumn period, which lasted from 771 BCE to 476 BCE. The weapon's name, on the other hand, comes from a set of records written at this time about Olu's affairs, known as the Spring and Autumn mammals. The animals that are generally believed to have been assembled by the influential Chinese philosopher Confucius continue to be a key historical source. These documents include accounts of major events in the region, such as battles, marriages, deaths, and rituals. Other than the Zhou king had relatives, and loyal generals managed parcels of it as their own fiefdoms. These areas then gradually evolved into separate states, with the dozen most powerful states becoming known as the 12. Vassals and representatives from the states met frequently to strategize and collaborate, particularly in matters of warfare. But as time went on, the kingdoms began to quarrel among themselves. Then warfare in Hubei led to the gradual establishment of numerous small states, transforming the map of the region. In fact, 148 states were noted in the spring and autumn annals, although the total was ultimately reduced to just 20. Naturally, the period was marked by ongoing technological developments, particularly in the production of armaments. Yes, fine swords were designed and forged during this era, with some even taking a number of years to complete. And the sword of Gaussian is one such weapon itself, a product of tremendous skill and labor. The sword of Gaussian stretches to just under 22 inches long and weighs just a little under 31 ounces, tapering to a pointed tip. Its blade is slightly less than 2 inches in width at its base, while the hilt or handle of the sword measures up at 3.3 inches in length. The sword is sumptuous in appearance with the surface of the blade on both sides etched with diamond patterns. The hilt, meanwhile, is lightly embellished with blue stones and self-bindings, while its rounded pommel features 11 circles that all share the same center. Great care was seemingly taken then in the weapon's design and construction, but what makes this sword of gaudy and truly special is its remarkable state of preservation. Indeed, in spite of having spent over 2,000 years in a water-splashed burial place, the relic was found totally clean that stayed lethal sharp for sure, as scientists found it very fit for cutting through a heap of 20 pieces of paper. Why was the sword in such great condition? First and foremost, the metallurgical composition of the weapon and its airtight sheath contributed to the weapon's longevity. You see, the blade is mostly made of copper, giving it flexibility, but the extra tin in its edges gives them a long-lasting sharpness. The metal has also reportedly been shielded from tarnishing by traces of sulfur throughout. On both sides of the sword, 2 columns of engraved script include the name of the sword's owner. That writing is a type of seal script known as bird worm because its characters are written in fuzzy strokes. Seal script is derived from oracle bone script and was widely used in spring and autumn. The sword's inscriptions indicate that it was once owned by a local king. The words "King of You" are written on one side of the blade, while "Made this sword for his personal use" is written on the other side. However, the script does not specify precisely which of you is in charge of bringing the weapon to life, which is unfortunate. Until its annexation by 2 in 334 BCE, the Kingdom of EU was a regional power that existed for approximately 160 years. However, there were 9 distinct monarchs in charge of the state at that time. As a result, a group of historians began writing letters to each other about their theories in an effort to identify the sword zone. The scholars then began to acquire a comprehensive understanding of the sword's history after several weeks of discussion. It is believed that the weapon once belonged to Gaudi, a warrior king who was known for his grit and determination in difficult times. Gaudi also participated in the last great war of the age and is thought by some to have been one of the 5-head humans. The 5-head humans were basically a succession of regional warlords who had the power to mobilize the vast military resources of this huge empire. The weapon is thought to have once belonged to Gaudi. Gaudi was a warrior king who was in effect. These men were in charge of protecting the land from outside aggression and keeping the peace and unity in the region. As at the Battle of Zuli, he was roundly defeated by you and left with mortal injuries. Before dying, though, he instructed his son Fungi to take revenge for his defeat, thereby committing future generations to the cycle of conflict. Never forget you, Hel, who apparently told Fungi. Then 3 years later, Wuhan you faced off again. This time, however, it was Wu who emerged victorious, and he even took Gaudi and prisoner, and yet Gaudi, and was not executed, nor even kept in a locked cell. Instead, he was forced to suffer the symbolic indignity of acting, as much as attendant Gaussian's ordeal lasted for 3 years before Fungi allowed him to return home with his royal power restored. Gaudi and subsequently assembled a team of seasoned counselors and diplomats to help strengthen his kingdom, and at the same time, he began pursuing a strategy of weakening Wu and its infrastructure with unofficial inducements and conspiracies. In fact, There is an old Chinese idiom that's said to partly refer to Gaussian's dog had persistence, sleeping on sticks and tasting gold. During his reign, you see gouging, and did not indulge himself in worldly extravagances. Instead, he ate as simply as the common folk, and even forced himself to consume bile as a reminder of his captivity and Wu. And in the end, Gaussian's persistence paid off, according to a historical chronicle written by the Han Dynasty in 94 BCE, and known as the Shiji. A decade of focused statecraft had transformed you into a regional powerhouse after 10 years of reforms. The text says the state is rich and the warriors well rewarded before striking at the world capital, though Gaoji, and had waited for Fengdai to guide his armies northward for a separate confrontation with the state of Chai. That strategic move proved to be a success with Gaudi, and even managing to kill you, the crown prince of Wu. The capital was again besieged by Gaudi in 473 BC, this time for 3 years before it was destroyed. Surprisingly, Gaoji and was well known for his bizarre and terrifying battlefield strategies. It has been stated, for instance, that he would station self-destructing soldiers on his front lines. Surprisingly, it appears that these men's goal was to scare the enemy by taking their own lives, by cutting their own throats in front of everyone. Now, despite the fact that Fuchai showed him mercy years before Zhao Ji and refused to accept Fuch's surrender, the monarch was forced to commit suicide. The triumphant King Gaudi then took control of Wu Dugi and began to purge the Wu court by executioning scholars, in a move that may have been wise, but it was unquestionably cruel. Gaudi did not spare his enemies, and he ruled over the kingdom of Yu for 31 years until his death in 465 BCE. But Warring States period began roughly a decade later, marking the beginning of a new era in the region's history. Interstate conflicts escalated and intensified throughout this period. 6 generations after Gaudi's reign, King Wuzhong of Yu was getting ready to invade Qi in 334 BC. However, despite sending a diplomat to persuade him to attack Tu instead, the attack was unsuccessful. Wuzhong was crushed, and the realm of EU was in this manner vanquished by to the fighting states. Time frame really went on until 221 BCE, when the territory of Qin vanquished each of the 6 of its significant foes, and China was brought together under family Shi Huang, the principal head of Qin. And keeping in mind that the Qin line was fleeting, enduring only 15 years, it had its own getting through heritage. A new form of Chinese imperialism was established during that time, and it lasted until 1912. The type of gaussian is currently on display at the Hubei Provincial Museum. Since the 1960s, the location has not seen the weapon frequently. However, it was accidentally damaged when it was loaned to a Singapore museum in 1994. The sword has also been added to a list of Chinese artifacts that cannot be removed since that incident. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.